They laughed when old Farmer Jack turned down the new tractor and hitched a team of mules to the overgrown backfield. By noon, two men at the gate said he was trying to clear 40 years of brush with animals that belonged in a history book. But Jack was not trying to tear the field open. He was trying to find the road his grandfather said was still buried underneath it. The salesman had brought the tractor on a Tuesday morning. It came on a flatbed, green paint shining, tires clean, blade attachment strapped down behind it like a promise. Jack Briggs stood beside the barn with his hands in the pockets of his brown canvas vest and watched the young man unload it. The salesman's name was Tyler Hodge. He was 30, maybe younger, with a clean cap, clean boots, and the confidence of a man who had never had to fix something with baling wire because no parts were coming until Friday. "Mr. Briggs," Tyler said, patting the side of the tractor, "this will open that backfield in 2 days." Jack looked toward the north rise. The backfield sat behind 40 years of sumac, wild grape, cedar sprouts, blackberry, and fallen limbs. The old access path had disappeared so completely that younger men in the county thought there had never been one. Tyler pointed toward the blade. "You push through from the lower side, cut the brush, grade the lane. You'll have a harvest route before the week is out." Jack nodded. That's one way. Dale Mercer, who had come over to watch because men liked new equipment almost as much as they liked other men's decisions, laughed from the gate. "One way?" Dale said. "Jack, that's the only way unless you're planning to carry the corn out in buckets." The second man, Roy Bannon, grinned. Maybe Jack's got a secret machine in the barn. Jack looked at the tractor. Then he looked at the brush. Then he said, "I'm not buying it." Tyler blinked. "You're not?" "No." Dale straightened. "Jack, your old tractor barely starts in cold weather. She starts when she needs to. That field needs horsepower." Jack turned toward the barn. "I've got some." When he came back, he was leading two mules. One was dark brown with a white nose, and the other was gray around the muzzle. Both broad through the chest, both calm in the eyes, both standing like they had already heard the jokes and did not care. Roy started laughing first. Dale followed. Tyler tried not to, but failed. "Mules?" Dale said. "You're going to open the backfield with mules?" Jack pulled on his gloves. "No," he said. "They're going to show me where not to break it. If you've ever seen someone laughed at for doing things the old way, drop your city in the comments. I want to know where you're watching from while this old lane starts coming back." The reason was in a small oil-stained ledger Jack kept wrapped in cloth in the top drawer of his workbench. The ledger had belonged to Amos Briggs, Jack's grandfather. Amos had farmed with mules before tractors became common enough for every man to believe diesel made him wiser. He had written in short lines, not stories, instructions. Backfield lane, stone road under sumac, holds wet weather, do not rip with steel. Let the team find it. Jack had read that entry 100 times over the years. When he was a boy, the road was still visible in places. Flat limestone edges, 2 shallow wagon ruts, a dry line through ground that turned soft everywhere else after rain. The old lane had once connected the backfield to the lower mill road. It let wagons move around the wet hollow instead of through it. Then the farm changed. The lower road washed out. The backfield went unused for a few years. A few years became 20. 20 became 40. The sumac came first, then cedar, then grapevine, then enough brush to make people forget there had ever been a road. But Jack had not forgotten, and Amos had written it down. That mattered. A tractor blade would clear the brush fast, yes. It would also catch the old limestone edges, roll them out of place, break the roadbed, and mix the one thing worth saving into the dirt. The road did not need to be ripped open. It needed to be found. The mules were named Ruth and Carter. Ruth was the darker one, steady and wide-footed. Carter was older, slower to start, but better at feeling ground. Jack had worked with both long enough to know when they trusted a step and when they did not. He hitched them to a light drag, not a plow. That was important. A plow cut. A drag tested. Tyler stood beside the new tractor with his arms crossed. Dale leaned on the gate. Roy had already told 3 people by phone that Jack Briggs was about to farm like it was 1910. Jack heard him. He did not answer. He clicked his tongue once, and the mules stepped toward the brush. They did not charge in. They lowered their heads. They tested the ground. Ruth stepped left, then stopped. Carter stepped right, then settled. Jack watched their hooves, not the brush, not the men, the hooves. That was where the truth would show first. The first pass looked like nothing. A few vines broke. A little dead grass flattened. The mules pulled the drag 20 yards. Then Carter stopped so suddenly the chains went slack. Tyler laughed. Mechanical failure already? Jack walked forward and knelt. He brushed leaves away from Carter's front hoof. Under the leaves was stone. Not much. Just one flat edge, pale under the dark soil. Jack touched it with 2 fingers. Then he looked back at the men. Nobody laughed quite as loudly after that. If your family ever had old farm roads, lanes, field paths, or routes that disappeared under brush, tell me about it below. Sometimes a farm does not lose a road. It just stops needing it long enough for brush to cover the memory. The next 2 days were slow, painfully slow to anyone watching from the road. Jack would move the mules forward. They would test the ground. He would mark where their hooves found firmness. Then he would clear by hand. Sumac roots, wild grape, old cedar branches, blackberry canes thick as wire. He did not clear wide. He cleared narrow, just enough to see. Dale came back on the 3rd morning and found Jack kneeling in the dirt with a mason's hammer, tapping along a line of buried stone. You could be done by now, Dale said. Jack did not look up. No. Dale frowned. With that tractor, you could. With that tractor, I could be finished making a mess by now. Dale looked at the line Jack had uncovered. Flat limestone stones ran in a faint curve beneath the brush. Not a wall, not a foundation, a road edge. Dale's face changed, but only a little. What is that? Jack said. The side of the old lane. Dale stepped closer. I've walked this field 20 years. Jack brushed dirt from another stone. Not low enough. By the 5th day, the lane began to show itself. First one edge, then the other. Then the shallow middle where wagon wheels had passed enough times to press the road into memory. After a rain, the proof became clearer. The brush around the path was wet. The hollow was wet. The lower ground was soft enough to take a boot print, but the strip beneath the mules stayed firm. Water slid off the old roadbed the way Amos had said it would. Holds wet weather. Jack stood in the rain with his hat brim dripping and smiled for the first time all week. He went back to the ledger that night and placed it open beside his coffee. The page was stained and nearly torn at the fold. Backfield Lane. Stone Road under sumac. Holds wet weather. Do not rip with steel. Let the team find it. Jack read the last line again. Let the team find it. Amos had not written, let the team clear it. He had written, find it. That was the part everyone missed. The mules were not the solution because they were strong. They were the solution because they were slow enough to notice what steel would ignore. On the seventh day, Carter stopped at a place where the brush grew thick around a fallen cedar. Ruth stopped beside him. Jack knew that kind of stop. Not tired, not stubborn. Careful. He tied the lines to a branch and took his spade from the cart. The soil there was darker, packed, mixed with old leaf-rotten roots. He cut away the first layer, then the second. His spade hit something flat. Jack stopped. He got down on one knee and cleared with his hands. A wide limestone slab appeared, then another beside it. Then a shallow rut running between them, filled with dirt but still shaped by wheels that had not rolled there in decades. Jack sat back and took off one glove. He placed his bare hand on the stone. It was cool, solid, still set. The old road had not washed away. It had not disappeared. It had only been waiting beneath the brush. Tyler had come back that afternoon to pick up the tractor. He saw Jack kneeling over the stones and walked closer without speaking. Dale came behind him. Roy followed. For once, nobody made a joke. Jack cleared the road edge for another hour while the men watched. Piece by piece, the lane appeared. Flat limestone, shallow wagon rut, stone shoulder, packed center. A farm road built by men who expected it to hold weight because their harvest depended on it. Tyler finally said, "The blade would have pulled that up." Jack nodded. "First pass." Dale looked toward the shiny tractor. "You knew it was here?" "My grandfather did." "And the mules?" Jack looked at Ruth and Carter standing quietly in harness. They felt where the ground still held. Before we see if that old road could still carry weight, subscribe for more old Farmer Jack stories about old machines, hard harvests, and the wisdom people forget. The test came the following Saturday. Jack did not make a show of it. He loaded an old farm wagon with feed sacks, fence wire, and 2 toolboxes heavy enough to make the point. He hitched Ruth and Carter. Then he stood at the start of the cleared lane and looked down the line of stone that had been hidden all those years. Dale stood by the gate. Tyler stood beside him. Roy had brought coffee and no jokes. Jack clicked his tongue. The mules leaned forward. The wagon wheels rolled onto the stone. The road held. Not perfectly, not like pavement, but like an old farm road should. It carried the weight across the rise, around the wet hollow, and down toward the lower mill road without sinking. Jack walked beside the wagon, one hand on the sideboard. He was not smiling wide. That was not his way. But his eyes had the quiet look of a man hearing an old voice say, "I told you so." At the far end, the wagon rolled out where the brush opened toward the lower road. Dale took off his cap. "Well," he said. Roy looked at the road. "All these years that was under there," Jack said. "All these years nobody needed it bad enough to look." Tyler looked back toward the tractor on the trailer. "I thought you were choosing mules because you didn't trust machines." Jack chuckled once. "I trust machines fine." "Then why not use one?" Jack rested a hand on Carter's neck. "Because some work asks you to listen before you push." The back field changed after that, not in a single day. Not like the men had imagined with diesel and steel. But it changed correctly. Jack opened the lane section by section. He left the stone edges in place. He cut brush back from the shoulders. He filled low spots with gravel by hand. He let water find its old ditches again. By harvest, the route was usable. Not fancy, not modern, but solid. The wagons came through. The small trailers came through. Even Jack's old tractor came through. Slowly, because once the road was found and protected, steel had its place. That was the lesson, too. Jack had never hated new things. He hated using the wrong tool because everyone else was watching. In October, after the last load came out of the back field, Jack went into the shop and opened Amos Briggs' ledger. On the page beneath the old note, he wrote, "Back lane found. Stone held. Team was right. No steal until marked." He paused. Then he added, "Thank you, Amos." He let the ink dry. Then he closed the ledger and put it back in the top drawer. That evening, Tyler came by without the tractor. He stood in the shop doorway with his cap in his hands. "I've been thinking about that road," he said. Jack was sharpening a blade at the bench. "Roads will do that." Tyler gave a small laugh. "How did you know the mules would find it?" Jack set the file down. "I didn't know they'd find it." Tyler looked confused. Jack turned toward the open barn door where Ruth and Carter stood in the lot, heads low in the evening light. "I knew they'd feel it before steel broke it." Tyler looked toward the back field. "My granddad had an old lane on his place. Dad says it's gone." Jack picked up the ledger and tapped it once. Maybe it's gone," Jack said. "Or maybe it's just under people moving too fast." Tyler was quiet for a while. Then he nodded. "I might go. Look." Jack smiled. "Go slow. If this story found you at the right time, share it with someone who knows old ways are not useless just because they are slow. Drop your city in the comments and tell me if your family ever had an old road, field lane, map, or farm memory that later turned out to matter. Because the road had not vanished. The brush had hidden it. The years had covered it. The machines would have broken it. But the stones were still there, waiting beneath the roots for someone patient enough to let the old team find the way.